Welcome and thank you for listening to the 412 Double Play Podcast. Happy Memorial Day, Pirates fans. Bunch of wild games this week. Some grand slams, some big comebacks, bullpen blowups. We're going to talk through it all. But I am, as always, your host, Michael Castrano. Joining me, my co-host and double play partner, Ed Wassel. Ed, going 3 for 3 on the week against the Giants and the Braves is not terrible if you don't have the context of how it all happened.
Yeah, it's not terrible. Typically it's not terrible, but when you have the opportunity to go like 5 or 6, it makes it less pleasant, I guess.
Here's the thing, though. We could have won all 3 games of that Brave series, or we could have easily lost all 3.
Yeah.
Because game 1 really shouldn't have been a win. And obviously we're going to talk about that in the weekly recap, but just a wild week of games. It kind of felt like today was a letdown because of a bunch of injuries. But getting ahead of ourselves, let's talk about the transactions for this past week. Ahead of the Giants series, reliever Ryder Ryan was optioned for the 3rd time this season. Keep in mind, they only can be optioned 5 times before they have to be put on waivers. And to make room for Ji-Hwan Bae, leaving the team with an uneven split for pitchers and position players that they wouldn't clear up until Thursday when they optioned Jack Sawinski to Indy, recalled Southpaw reliever Jose Hernandez. Additionally, Josh Fleming, who was DFA'd last week, he cleared waivers. He was outrighted to Indy, so he is there. Ed, I'm sure I know the answer to this, but Jack Sawinski getting optioned down to Indy. He's been struggling a lot, even when the rest of the offense was trucking along. Is he not the guy that the organization wants him to be?
I don't know how to answer that. I know, like, we've had outside discussions where I'm like, I don't know if he's quite at the MLB level. You know, he's very streaky. He gets on that 1 month where he might hit 10 or 12 home runs, and then he can't hit the ball at all for the next 2 months. So, yeah, I don't know. I think if he can get consistent down in the minors, which I'm pretty sure he skipped AAA altogether when he was brought up. Was that 2 years ago?
It basically did, yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, hopefully they can work on his swing or his approach, whatever it is, because he was someone that was really frustrating for me. There were so many at bats where he just didn't even lift the bat off his shoulder. Like, you have to at least make it seem like you're going to swing.
He was definitely getting less aggressive at the plate. I'm trying to pull up his stats to kind of figure out how he had been doing, because I want to say he wasn't the worst one on the team, as we kind of all know who's really been doing worse, but I'm pretty sure he was statistically the worst one, unfortunately for him. No, he wasn't. He's got a 60 WRC plus, and Rowdy Tellez is at 36.
And what, 100 is considered league average?
100's league average, but his triple slash line is 174, 268, 297. All are well below his career average. All are well below what you want from what is now a corner outfielder, because he's, Michael A. Taylor's in center field, Ji-Hwan Bae's in center field. I mean, who knows? Maybe they'll give Andrew McCutchen some time there. But, like, is the amount of struggles that he's had something that can be worked through, and can he come back and become productive again? I mean, we saw Nick Gonzalez. He struggled last year, started the year at Indy, came back, and he's like a completely different player. Like, he's got
I mean, Jack is still young. Like, it's not like he's 33 and having these kinds of struggles. It's just like, you've been around for however long. He's still really young. Like, if he can just work on his swing with not as competitive pitching to get his confidence back, which we talk about with a lot of guys, I don't see any reason why he can't come back up and rake.
Yeah, and that's a hope. And there's certainly a spot for him to be here and be successful. But he's got to prove it at Indianapolis first. Also, other thing this past week, I think it must have been Tuesday's game. Pirates announced the Hall of Fame class. We got 1 out of 3 right. It included Manny Sanguillen, Jim Leland, longtime manager for the Pirates, and Barry Bonds. Which of these surprised you the most? Jim Leland obviously is getting inaugurated or inducted, however you want to say it, into the National Baseball Hall of Fame this year by the Veterans Committee. But Barry Bonds had a kind of tumultuous time with the Pirates, didn't get along well with some of the other players, had a very public spat with manager Leland himself. Now he's going alongside him. Your thoughts on Bonds being part of Pirates history, really being the 3rd Hall of Fame class?
I mean, he's definitely deserving. He had some amazing years in Pittsburgh. Would he 1 or 2 MVP seasons?
So he had 2 MVP seasons. The one year he was the runner-up. And depending on how you look at it, you could argue that he probably should have gotten it. He led the league in WAR. But I always forget the guy's name. It was a Braves like 3rd baseman or something like that. He led the league in hits. I'll look it up. You go on.
Yeah. So, I mean, I definitely think Bonds deserves that honor. I was surprised by it. I don't know. He wasn't on my radar at this point, and I don't know if it was just I wasn't thinking about him, or if I was thinking how you said about how the relationship was with the organization.
Mm-hmm.
So that kind of threw me off a little bit, but I was like, oh, that's cool. Like, maybe they just patch things up, different ownership and everything.
We 100% were not thinking about Bonds. I mentioned Leland as someone
You mentioned Leland, yeah.
Because I was thinking Chuck Tanner, because I'm like, okay, the 79 World Series team is coming in this weekend. Be great for them to have Tanner and like as part. Obviously, he's not there because he's deceased, but as part of that whole like celebration. Sangi, incredibly deserving for what he means to Pirates fans now, for what he meant to Pirates fans in the 70s, being part of both the 71 and 79 World Series teams. And like, the dude's just beloved. And even hearing the guys who came back from the 79 celebration for that 45th year anniversary of that World Series title, talk about like all these stories involving Sangi, involving some of the other pitchers and catchers and position players. Like that was a fun team. And I don't know how much you got to see about the game from Saturday, the interviews that they had with some of those guys like Jim Rooker, Teague was in there. Do you think that there are any similarities between, and this is kind of going into a deep dive that you're probably not prepared for, the 79 team, the Lumber Company, Dave Parker, Willie Stargell, like those are some big bats. This team is starting to kind of show that.
No.
Do you feel like they might eventually be on that trajectory?
No.
Straight up, no.
No.
I mean, we don't have like a first baseman like
Stargell was. Cruz will absolutely crush a ball, but it's like 2 feet off the ground the entire time.
Yep. He's had some crazy line drive home runs, which like you think about. Pops hit the longest home run in what was it, Olympic Stadium in Montreal in the history of that stadium. I don't remember what the
one that
was.
Landed in like a pool. It was in like a public park across the street.
I don't know. I'll have to look that up. It was 500 plus feet. It was some, like he hit a ball out of Chavez Ravine. I mean, like the similarities, I'd say, like Stargell, Cruz, but yeah, it's hard to compare to those old teams because the game is so different now. And you can't say, oh, we've got this great rotation like they had with Blyleven and Rooker and all of those guys who are going to be able to compete. But like, we've got a great rotation and we've got some big bats. We've just got one issue, and we're going to talk about that in our weekly special. But first, we're going to talk about the recap from this past week. Headed back home to host the San Francisco Giants. facing Logan Wemmick game 1, and despite a lot of hard-hit balls, the Bucs struggled to get much going against him. Just a Jared Triolo sac fly, Brian Reynolds RBI, fielder's choice in 6 innings. Martin Perez had a shaky start, not helped by a 2-run, 2-out error in the first inning by O'Neill Cruz, unfortunately. He lasted just 4.1 innings with 2 earned runs allowed. Team ended up going down 6-2 to the bottom of the 9th, clawed back to force extras, kept it tied in the 10th, top of the 10th, with a solid showing by David Bednar. He's been really improving this month. Nick Gonzalez comes up with a first pitch RBI single off a down and away changeup. He's starting to hit the breaking pitches, off-speed stuff, gave the Bucs a walk-off 7-6 win. But as you guys probably know, listening to this, fates shifted for the next 2 games as they, where am I here? There we go. Pirates jumped out to an early 5-0 lead after a big grand slam by Brian Reynolds off starter Blake Snell in the 4th inning, had the team cruising early. But even with Jared Jones posting another quality start, 3 runs in 6 frames, he had a rare wild outing. He had 3 walks, just 5 strikeouts, wasn't hitting his spots, didn't feel like he had his fastball. Slider was a bit iffy. Relievers were not able to finish the job. Aroldis Chapman, 8th inning, came in. 12 of his 14 pitches were thrown for balls. He walked the bases loaded. Shelton came in, pulled him out. Colin Holderman took over. Holderman allowed just 1 runner to score on a ground out to the catcher, which Bart opted to get the out at first. Probably could have gotten the out at home, but doesn't. I mean, in the moment, who knows? Came back for the 9th inning. Holderman did, and it was his first multi-inning outing of the year. Proceeded to give up the game-tying run. Carmen Majinski got the last out in the 9th. Actually, I think for Holderman, it was his second multi-inning outing of the year. Majinski got the last out in the 9th, but he also came back out for the 10th, and they gave up 4 runs as the Bucs lost 9-5. And then finally in game 3, Paul Skeens on the mound. Kutch started with the leadoff home run. Bart hit a 4th inning grand slam, gave the Bucs a 5-1 lead. Skeens had more of a pitch to contact approach in this start, managed to go 6 innings, 6 hits, 1 run, 1 walk, just 3 strikeouts. But once the bullpen came in, it went to pieces again. Team immediately went to recently recalled Jose Hernandez in the 7th. He only showed up in the 3rd inning. He allowed a solo home run, got just 2 outs. He was lifted for Hunter Stratton. Stratton got the last out and then came back out for the 8th inning and then allowed 4 runs to score, tied the game at the time before Aroldis Chapman came in and allowed the go-ahead run with 2 outs in the 8th. Pirates not able to battle back, lost 7-6. But looking to turn things around as the Atlanta Braves are coming to town, a team against whom the Pirates have struggled in recent years. Pirates had Bailey Falter on for game 1. While they gave up a fair amount of hard contact, Falter kept the Braves scoreless through the first 7 innings. Pirates unloaded on spot starter Ray Kerr in what became a bit of a bullpen game for Atlanta. Bucs scored 11 runs with each starter getting at least, starting position player, getting at least 1 hit. Falter did allow an 8th inning 3-run home run to Ronald Acuna Jr. before being pulled. Braves tacked on 2 more against reliever Luis Ortiz, but the comeback was for naught as the Pirates won 11-5. Game 2, a little less fireworks, but no less fun. Rain delayed the start of the game by about half an hour and will cause another nearly half-hour delay during the bottom of the 5th. Another excellent start by Mitch Keller. He went 6.2 innings of 6-hit, 1-run ball, 0 walks, 4 strikeouts. Offense small-balled their way to a 4-1 win in probably their most complete game of the week. And then final game facing Chris Sale. We knew it was going to be tough. Came in with a 20 scoreless inning streak. We managed to break that in the 2nd inning, but he held the Bucs to just that 1 run over 7 spectacular innings. Injuries were kind of an issue today, both sides. Acuna appeared to injure his knee during the 1st inning. Looks like he's going for an MRI. Might be on the IL for at least a month, according to him. Joey Bart left after the 1st with a reported thumb injury. Martin Perez came out after the 3rd inning with an apparent groin strain. The game was tied 1-1 when he came out, and you guys know how it goes. The bullpen not able to keep it going. Braves rallied for a 7-1 win. Some notes on this past week. Tuesday's game was the first time the Pirates won a game after trailing by 4 or more runs in the 9th inning since July 12th, 2008 against the Cardinals. The Wednesday and Thursday affairs was only the 4th time in MLB history that a team hit grand slams in back-to-back games and lost both games. Fun part of history to be a part of. And the Braves series was the first time the Pirates have won a series against Atlanta in 7 years. Ed, you go ahead and talk for a bit. The Giants series, we said it at the start. I'm going to say it again. We could have won all 3 and we could have lost all 3. How impactful, because it's 162 game season. It's a long season. How impactful are those losses in the grand scheme of things?
I mean, every loss basically, trying to think how to word this. Every loss accounts for the same to me. Like, it doesn't matter if you lose to the Giants in April or the Reds in September. Still, it's a loss one way or the other, just like the wins. So, a win in April is just as good as a win in September.
Yep.
So, like, the opponent for me doesn't really matter. It's more of maybe how you lose. Could that derail you if it's due to injury or poor management, poor decisions? Like that game 1, Holderman comes in totally amped up. Adrenaline's pumping.
Yep.
Gets Chapman out of the jam that he left him in. You see him go into the dugout, and they kept showing him in the dugout, and you're like, dude, he's drained. Like, emotionally,
there was no high fives. And he didn't throw a ton of pitches, but he threw I want to say 17 or 18.
Yeah, but it was such a high
worth of pitches.
It's such a high level of intensity at that time. Mm-hmm. Like, it's once you take a break, like, you're done. Your body, the adrenaline's gone. You're not going to be able to go back out there and continue to.
But the worst part is, in the post game, Holderman said, I was not aware when I was warming up that I might need to go another inning, that I might be up, down, up. He didn't know. He didn't think it was a possibility. Last time he had pitched more than one frame was when he got the 1 out in the May 11th game against the Cubs. And that was when everybody, they had no bullpen left.
Yeah.
Because everybody walked everybody in that 5th inning or whatever it was. So he wasn't expecting it, and he shouldn't have to expect it. He's not. He's a single inning relief guy. He's our 7th, probably 8th inning guy, because you look at what Chapman's been doing lately. You can't say that he should be the 8th inning guy.
And that's another thing. Like I said, showing him in the dugout, you can tell he had no. At that point, I think he still had no idea he was going back out for another inning.
Yeah,
like, he left it all out on the field, and then to try to send him back out there again, it's like, dude, no.
And the same thing happened with Stratton. The same thing happened. I mean, I don't want to say Majinski, but Majinski went multiple innings today, and I think he fared worse in the 2nd inning. It's like some guys are ready for it. Some guys are built up to do that kind of up, down, up situation. Some guys are going to struggle with it. Like Josh Fleming, I think, was okay. It wasn't great, but he was okay at doing multiple innings. Roansy Contreras, was okay at it. He actually had a 4.41 ERA with the Pirates, which is the same ERA that Aroldis Chapman had coming into today. It's since gone up because he gave up several runs. And Rowe, since going to the Angels, I think he has 2 scoreless appearances, including today. Pretty sure he had another scoreless one. It's kind of frustrating. But you look at what the rotation has done. And entering May 26th, since the start of the season, I think this is, they're 5th in innings pitched, 11th in ERA, 2nd in quality starts, behind only Philly, and they have a 14-17 record, which is a good chunk of the wins. The bullpen, on the other hand, has, which makes sense, the 6th least amount of innings, the 5th highest ERA, 5th highest walk rate, 5th highest whip, and the 3rd highest barrel percentage, while posting an 11-11 record. I don't know why the starting pitching is like record-wise so bad. But
Because when
I
they gave up
also,
one run and we don't score anything, the starter loses.
well, no. I think it's more like they left with runners on base and the bullpen didn't keep them there.
Oh,
So you
I
think
just
back
think
to
I'm talking that month-long offensive slump where if the starter gave up
sure.
one or two runs, the game was already over.
Either way, they've been very productive, and the bullpen unfortunately has not. And that. It's just been. I mean, you guys see the title here. You guys know what we're going to be talking about with regards to the bullpen. We're not very high on it. Skeens and Jones both having outings that were more on length and less on just missing a ton of bats. Does that concern you at all, or do you think they were maybe sent to not really go for long outings? Like
I can
that
see
they wanted
them
to have a long outing, not long innings.
right. I can see the pitching coach maybe you preach your pitch count won't be as high. You can get longer if you pitch to contact. Let your defense get the outs. Because if you're constantly just trying to miss bats, you're trying to paint the black that might be called a ball. They're fouling it off. You finally get a strikeout after 7 pitches or whatever, as opposed to them hitting a weak grounder on the second pitch. So I can see them maybe trying to do something like that to save their arms a little bit.
Yeah.
And what do you
Maybe.
think about now? We have Skeens and Jones go back to back multiple times.
They went back to back in the Giants series, and yeah, they went back to back in the Cubs series. They may have gone back to back in the last Cubs series too. Yeah.
What do
All
you
right.
think about the team maybe splitting their starts up because they are pretty similar with velocity and you might get the timing up near the end of one of their starts, and then you're kind of ready for the next day against the next guy.
Possibly, and I can see that as a potential strategy. But on the other hand, the Cubs saw him 2 times in a row, and they looked so stupid against Skeens. And
Right, but
they had just seen Jones the previous day, whatever it was. I mean, the velocity is very similar, but that's about it if you think about it. I think that the arm slot's slightly different. The pitch mix is slightly different. You look at what Jones does, it's fastball, slider mostly. He's got the change, he's got the curve. They're a little bit more fringy, less used. Skeens will go fastball and then splinker. And
which
then
is
he's
still
got
like 96 miles an hour.
oh yeah. It's crazy. Like his pitch mix, it's all gonna be high velo. He's not gonna drop it down. I don't think I've seen him throw a pitch in the 80s really. Probably has, but like who knows. So it's just kind of a different it's different feel. Like yeah, the velocity. If they're catching up to the velocity in day 1 against Jones, maybe they're going to catch up to the velocity in day 2 against Skeens. This upcoming series that we've got in Detroit is going to feature both pitchers potentially, unless they change things around. I don't see why they would. But yeah, maybe they do change things at some point and say, okay, we do Jones, and then we do someone like Martin Perez or Bailey Falters, a little bit like softer stuff, and then we do Skeens. But at the same time, these guys have been like playing against each other since they were teenagers in California. They were talking in one of the games about how Jones pitched against Skeens when he was playing like third base for his high school team or travel ball team or something like that. And it's like, dang, this guy is so athletic that he didn't start pitching until like his first or second year of college in Air Force. And he became a 1-1. And he has some of the most elite stuff in the game. Like
And
we are so lucky.
He was a really good catcher and had a really good bat.
Yeah. Yeah, also that. But we're just so lucky. Let me see if I still have the stats pulled up. The starting pitching Nope, I don't still have it pulled up there. I've got it pulled up in too many places. But our rotation overall, you look at Mitch Keller, he's got like a sub-2 ERA this month. Not far behind him is Bailey Falter. Not far behind him is Skeens and Jones. And then, okay, Perez might be down for a bit. Still, we went 3 innings, gave up 1 run today. Not great, but that's your 5. That is a crazy rotation. Also, an aside, the Rodolfo Castro trade is looking like a weird steal now. Castro's struggling in AAA. He's down the road for me with the Iron Pigs in Lehigh Valley. And Falter's, trying to make the All-Star team. I mean, I don't think he's gonna, but
swap there.
It's just weird.
The Phillies are missing them. They have the best rotation in all of it.
They do. Yeah, they do have the best rotation. But let's go ahead and pivot to down on the farm. A couple games currently in progress as we're recording this, but starting with Indianapolis at the Iowa Cubs. 3-3 series split this week. Henry Davis has been on fire since heading back to Indy. He's posted a 1.371 OPS in the last week. 3 doubles, 3 home runs. Matt Gorski also been rising. Drove in 10 runs over the series against the baby Cubs. Crushed 4 long balls. If Perez is out for any extended period of time, Quinn Priester pitched today, 7 shutout innings in 2 starts this week. He totaled 11 innings, 3 earned runs, 2 walks, 9 strikeouts. He's the likely one that they'd call up. He's already been down for 2 weeks, so even if they want to just do a wait and see, potentially can come up at any point in time. Indians are now 23-25 on the season. Altoona at Erie Seawolves, 4-1 coming into today. They haven't finished the final game this week at the time of recording, but Sean Sullivan, another strong start for the Curve, 6 shutout innings, and not a lot of strikeouts. I think he only 2 or 3, but he just continues to put up zeros. Very underrated. He's going to be someone that we're going to have to keep an eye on. Shang-Chi Chang appears to be getting things back on track. He posted a 375, 412, 625 triple slash this week with a double and a home run on the week. Heading to Greensboro versus the Greenville Drive. 2-3 coming into today. Also have a game going on right now. They were leading last I checked. We'll see how it goes. Hoppers had that late Sunday game. As of this recording, Nick Simillo and PJ Hilson each knocked 2 home runs in the series. Patrick Riley pitching 5 no-hit innings in his start. 3 walks, struck out 7. He's got some really good stuff. Just needs to wrangle it a little bit better. But someone to also keep an eye on down there in Greensboro. And finally, Bradenton hosting the Dunedin Blue Jays split their series 3-3. Omar Alfonso continues to rake and get on base as he went 5 for 15 on the week, 6-5 walk to strikeout ratio. Christian Curtis, who most of us saw for the first time in the spring breakout game, he tossed 5 innings of 1 run, 2 hit ball, 4 walks, 9 strikeouts. Control is a serious concern. He now has 21 walks in 32.1 innings, but he also has 35 strikeouts. Potentially his career path ends up being a late innings reliever down the stretch. But the Marauders have been doing a little bit better as of late. They're now 20-25 on the year. Ed, with the injury to Joey Bart today, there's already been calls for Henry Davis to come back. He's only been down there for 3 weeks. How long do you think Henry Davis needs to be proving himself in Indy? That it's not a mirage, not a short sample, not just getting a bunch of quad A pitchers that he's facing before you say, okay, bring him back. He's ready again.
Well, when you do eventually bring him back, it's to be your everyday starter. So unless you feel like that's the case, then I feel like you still have to wait a little bit. If you plan on sitting him behind Grandal, I mean, if you can put together essentially a full month of great baseball, to me that's enough to warrant another call up, another chance. See if it can translate to the big leagues. What kind of timeline do you think?
It's tough because I was seeing some people talk about it today on like social media. I saw some like people connected to the Pirates who were advising that like slow your roll. Grant Koch is on the taxi squad. He can be added without them having to make a change. Right now, the 40-man roster is only at 39. So if Bart does have to go on the IL, it's not going to be. They can add Koch and then just like pull him right off at some point if they need to add Davis. I don't know, because I don't want to say like he needs to spend months there. But at the same time, I really do want to make sure that like he's comfortable and he's ready when he comes up, because the bat is a real asset and he's hit at every level. And now he's at AAA and he's hitting. And he didn't get comfortable and wasn't in a good position to be successful in 2023. And it really felt like he was this year, but it's a lot. Like he's only caught, I mean, coming into this year, less than 100 games professionally. And then he was asked to be our everyday catcher. And then delay goes down pretty much immediately. I think he only caught one game. He's started his rehab in Bradenton, I think today or yesterday. But like it was a lot to ask of him.
Yeah.
So just needs to get his feet under him and kind of show that this is legit and that he's ready to come back and be successful. And maybe, hopefully, DH a couple times once he's up here instead of just only playing as catcher. Other thing I want to talk to you about, Matt Gorski. He's been someone who's been on our radar for, I want to say 2 years. He had that electric 2022 season in Altoona. Fell off a little bit last year, but like he still had a 2020 season between Altoona and Indianapolis. Now he's just crushing it. I mean, more like recently in Indy, but he's got a lot of swing and miss issues. The defense is really good. He can be, probably an average center fielder, above average corner outfielder, and he also plays some first base. Do you think obviously if he continues at this stretch, but do you think that Matt Gorski eventually finds himself on the 40-man roster and the 26-man roster at some point this season?
I think so. I think he's put together a few seasons in a row throughout the minors that, what would you say, the 2021 season you were talking about, where you just was ridiculous?
Well, 2022, I think, was especially good, but he was hitting for average, he was hitting for power, he was stealing bases. And then last year was a little bit less great, but he still had a 2020 season between Altoona and Indianapolis.
Yeah, because in 2022, he was like, blowing through all the systems, and then he had that like hamstring injury or something that completely derailed his season.
Yes.
Because we thought there was potential at like the end of that year he may have been able to come up because he was just playing that good.
Yeah, let me see. And he was on our top 30 prospects. I think he's still on for the Pirates. Oh, he might not be. I don't see him here. Maybe I'm missing him. He's got talent. He's, I think, a better version of Jace Bowen, which, man, I'm not sure if that's a compliment or a bashing of him, but I honestly think like he's a more advanced, like Bowen had that 2020 season last year between, I think, mostly at Greensboro, but some Altoona, did really well in Arizona Fall League. I think Gorski is like above what the Bowen ends up being. Let me see if I can find his stats overall.
Gorski's got a really strong arm too.
Yeah. All right. 2022. Go ahead.
I was gonna say he'd fit in great in right field.
Yeah, right field would be good. Center long term would not be a bad thing though. 2022, he like surged through the ranks. He was in Greensboro in 21, but all the seasons got messed up because of COVID. But between Bradenton, Greensboro, Altoona, and a really quick stint in Indianapolis, 280, 358, 598, triple slash, and then kind of, regressed a little bit last year, 231, 291, 434. But still had 20 home runs, 23 stolen bases, and 20 doubles. Like a 2020 season for a guy who 415 at bats. In the majors, he'd get 600 plus if he's playing every day. Potentially talking about like a 30-30 guy. I don't know.
Maybe.
I mean, you can't really extrapolate that to the majors, but if he were to be able to replicate that at the major league level, that's what you'd be looking at, which is insane.
Yeah.
So, let me. I don't know if there's anything else. Sean Sullivan having a good week. I really like that. And then Shang-Chi Chang, however you say his name, because I'm always getting it wrong. Z is. It's good to see that he's finally hitting. So let's go ahead and jump into the special for this week, and it's about bullpen management or mismanagement. My weekly rant last week was positive, talking through comparing this year's team to last year's and talking through the various improvements across the board on the field. But one area where the team has made no changes is in the front office and on the coaching staff. And that's going to be the subject of this week's special, because this past week, following an off day on Monday, the Pirates opted to short themselves in the bullpen in order to bolster their position players in the dugout. No one was injured as far as we can tell. This was basically to cover for the fact that they had a certain player whom they were not intending to play. And after a lengthy game on Tuesday, Shelty himself came out and said that they would need to make a move to call up an arm for the bullpen. And then they didn't. And then they struggled because of it. So Charrington is the living embodiment of that meme where the kid is riding a bike, puts a stick in the wheel, and then cries when he falls over. Because, come on, guys. The bullpen has been an issue this season, and it's partly due to injuries to some critical arms. Dario Moreta and Ryan Baracchi missing most, if not all, of this season. Partly due to delays in preparation for the season. Colin Holderman getting a bit of a late start. Carmen Majinski starting the season in Indianapolis and struggling since coming up. And then partly due to underperformance from guys who you expected to be lockdown relievers at the back end of the bullpen. Aroldis Chapman and David Bednar. I mentioned before, Bednar is starting to improve, but you can't erase the runs that are already on the books. So when you have a decision of whether or not to properly supplement that group, you need to make the right choice. And that lies squarely on Charrington. And I want to make that clear here because the losses against the Giants last week, even with a strained bullpen, could have been avoided if Shelton had managed the game and the bullpen properly. Starting with the game on Wednesday. And we're playing Monday morning quarterback here, mixing metaphors, football, baseball, whatever. It doesn't matter. You bring in Chapman, and he mucks it up. And that sucks. And good on Shelty for pulling him as quickly as he could. Went to Holderman, did a great job minimizing the damage, put it all out there for those 14 pitches. Holderman admitted after the game, as I mentioned earlier, he had no idea he was going to go out there when he went out there that he might be asked to go another inning. He had no reason to think that he would. He had only done it that one time before. And that was when the bullpen was already stretched and it was only the fifth inning. This time, he had cleared the table for the closer to come in and finish the job. He was covering the eighth inning. All that was left was the ninth. Except for some reason that wasn't explained to the public, Bednar wasn't available, and Shelton didn't want to go to either of his other perfectly rested pitchers like Majinski, understandable considering how he's performed, or Nicholas, also understandable, but at the same time, you went to the guy who just pitched, who put it all on the line, and wore out his arm. You pressed Holderman into a situation in which he was not prepared for, and you set him up to fail. Shelty did the same thing when he had Majinski relieve Holderman and then come back out for the 10th when he inevitably imploded and lost the game. Thursday, Skeen's last 6 innings leaves with a 5-1 lead. The first arm Shelty goes to, first arm he thinks to go to, is Jose Hernandez, who arrived at the park literally 3 innings earlier. I get you want to go with the fresh arm, but that's a little bit too fresh. And then Shelty makes the opposite rational decision because Jose Hernandez gives up a solo home run. He gets 2 outs around that. And then he pulls him to go to Hunter Stratton to get the last out of the inning instead of just letting Hernandez finish it or try to finish it. And then Stratton has to come out for another inning. And then he gives up single, home run, double, RBI single, fly out. And then he's lifted for Chapman. And Chapman, of course, he blows the game because that's just what Chapman's been doing this past week. It's just, I'm not even going to get into the Sunday game, mostly because I didn't write a retort down for it. But went multi-inning for several guys, and they struggled in those kind of situations. He was pressed into it because of Martin Perez going down early. I'm not, like, you kind of just got to throw stuff at the wall and see if he can get through the game. Facing Chris Sale, it's going to be tough. But baseball is a long and grueling season. Managers aren't always going to make the right moves every time. I remember years ago watching Clint Hurdle making pitching changes or moving guys around in the lineup, and I was pulling out what little hair I had left at the time. But you could see the sense in those moves. You could see the thought process behind them and that they were strategic, even if it didn't always work out, as opposed to reactionary, saying, okay, maybe this will work out. Maybe this is what I'm supposed to do, which is what it felt like Shelty was doing. He made the wrong decisions repeatedly during that Giants series. He put the team in position to lose because of those choices. And I've talked glowingly about Shelton in the past, at least in recent past, in regards to how he handles the clubhouse and some of the lineup decisions he's made. But his handle on the bullpen, maybe because of his history of being a hitting coach, continues to be an area in need of some serious improvement. Ed, we talked about how this bullpen's struggling, and that can't all fall on Shelton's shoulders. These guys are paid big money to be productive. Who is most at fault for the bullpen blowups across the course of the season? Is it the pitchers? Is it the general manager? Or is it the coach? Or coaching staff?
I mean, obviously, everyone's at fault. But like you had mentioned, these guys are professional athletes. You get paid to go out there and play baseball. So you need to go out there and be able to do your job when it's called upon. But it's the front office and manager's job to put you in the proper situation to succeed. And if you're set up for failure from the start, it's really hard to go out there and do well.
Yep.
Like I blame a lot on Shelty. I'm texting you constantly. Like, he does not know how to manage a rotation. He does not know how to manage a bullpen.
I mean, the rotation's been pretty great. They talked about how they've been one of the best since May 11th, when Skeens officially joined.
Right.
They've been among the best in baseball.
But, we're complaining about pulling pitchers early and going to the bullpen when they shouldn't have. And then the game getting blown wide open. But
it's definitely frustrating. Among relief pitchers who have thrown at least 5 innings for the Pirates this season, which there's, let me see, make sure that's 5. Oh yeah, this has Majinski in. Who have thrown at least 5 innings this season. There's 10 pitchers. So this includes Roansy Contreras. 4 of them have an ERA below 4.4. And Bednar's not one of them. Chapman's not one of them. Hunter Stratton, who's been really good, is not one of them. You got Colin Holderman, who's been excellent. Like, does exactly what you need him to. Jose Hernandez, Ryder Ryan, and surprisingly, Luis Ortiz. I saw somebody complaining about Ortiz today or yesterday, and I was like, what are you talking about? Of everybody in this bullpen, you're going to pick Ortiz to complain about? His whole job is mop-up, and he's done a great job at it. But, like, they need to get their stuff together, because you think about those 2013 to 2015 teams, and the big thing that kept them going, kept that lead after 6 innings, was that excellent bullpen. All right, well, we're already getting long here, so let's go ahead and look ahead. We're on the road again, 2 games at Detroit after the off day for Memorial Day, and then a 3-game set in Toronto before we come back home next week. So in the Detroit series, as of right now, I've got Jared Jones facing a potential AL Cy Young contender Tariq Skubal, and then Paul Skeens facing former Cardinal and having a really great bounce back season in Jack Flaherty. So we got our two aces on the mound, unless you think, Bailey Falter's our ace, going against arguably Detroit's two aces, at least for this season. Detroit's hitting, their offense has been pretty much on par over the course of the season as ours, although ours has kind of come around more lately. So what are your predictions for this series in Detroit? We went 1-1 when we saw them at home last month. You feel the same for this series, or more ambitious, less ambitious?
No, I was going to go with 1-1 with this series as well. It's going to be tough getting runs against them. Like you mentioned, probably their two aces that we're going to go against. So, yeah,
it's going to be a struggle.
A fair.
We managed to avoid Skubal last time around. Yeah, he's been my pick for AL Cy Young since preseason. So excited to get to see him face us and see how it goes. It's going to be two great matchups in those games. And then another day off on Thursday, 3-game set in Toronto. Bailey Falter tentatively facing Jose Barrios, however you say it. Mitch Keller versus Yusei Kikuchi. And then as of right now, Martin Perez facing Chris Bassett on Sunday. Depending on the severity of the injury, it could change. But Toronto really underperforming this season. The offense isn't coming along. The pitching has been kind of mixed. I think that we're probably getting 3 of their better starters. But predictions for that series.
Yeah, you mentioned I think they're last in their division right now. And just offensively, they're struggling pretty bad. Like a lot of their key bats just are not coming through for them.
Yeah, they are last in their division. It is a tough division, but they're 23-29. And they just they actually just faced the Tigers and they lost 3 out of 4.
Yeah, they're slumping. I think the Pirates are going to take 2 of those games.
I think Falter and Keller on the mound, you've got a chance anytime. And then we'll see how Perez bounces back, if he bounces back, or if it's a Priest or spot start. I like 2-1. I think that's ambitious, but not unattainable for this team. Any final thoughts before we send it off?
No, I think you complained enough for the both of us this week.
I wrote that after, I think, the Giants series. And I was it was during the Braves series. And I was like, I'm still just raging over it. But I'm going to let it settle. Going to enjoy my Memorial Day. You guys all have a happy Memorial Day, because that wraps it up for all of us here at the 412 Double Play podcast. Follow me on X at 412 Double Play. Follow Ed that way at Ed_Wassel. Continue listening to the show, Spotify, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, wherever else podcasts can be found. You've obviously found us if you're listening to this, so hopefully you guys are enjoying. Subscribe so you get notified when we drop our new episodes. Check out the articles at steelcity.com. We'll be dropping our preview for the Detroit series ahead of the game on Tuesday. Links in the description. And as always, thank you for checking out the show from all of us here at the 412 Double Play podcast. Thank you for joining us this week, and let's go Bucs.
Let's go Bucs.
Take it away, Sawyer.
Lady Jolly Roger, dude.
Thank you.